All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And a healthy and hearty greeting to all from all of us on the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mark. Nice to see you. Kim is here.
Kim, how are you?
Kim, how was the weekend? Was it okay? You wrangling those kids?
Hot.
Hot is right. Yeah. Albert, did you golf this weekend?
Albert, thank you.
What? Albert, were you golfing this weekend?
No, I was not, but I did watch Steph Curry golf this weekend. And,
Steph Curry with the hole-in-one. I mean, that was we were going to show you the Steph Curry hole-in-one, everyone, but we're worried about getting struck with some copyright violation, so we cannot. But I would recommend Googling it and checking it out if you're at all interested in it.
Hole-in-one, and he actually won the celebrity tournament. So
yeah. You heard about the controversy that emerged there, didn't you? So this is a Lake Tahoe tournament, and as we say, Curry really rocked it. The other guy who was rocking it was a guy named Marty Fish, tennis player, and apparently in a critical hole, as he was striking the ball, someone in the crowd yelled. What? And it did affect his shot. That's right. And the shot sliced into the woods, and Marty Fish was done, and Steph Curry went on. Now, Steph Curry didn't have any control over that.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
It was suggested that had that person in the crowd not yelled, that Fish might have made a real, maybe they would have gone to
the previous winner of the tournament as well, so he's obviously a golfer.
I see. I didn't know that.
Also, big tennis news, Mark. Were you watching the Wimbledon over the weekend? Obviously, there's a very fun ending, a good storybook ending this weekend.
Changing of the guard in Wimbledon. Novak Djokovic loses to the Spaniard, Carlos Alcaraz. And the King of Spain was there. And as I saw, they have all the shots because it's Wimbledon and taking place in England. They're shooting these reaction shots of the royal box, you see, because the royals are there to watch all of the tennis players run around. And where's our royal, where's the royal scepter? Do I have that anymore?
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
The royal scepter.
Receive the royal scepter.
That's it, the royal scepter, that's right. So anyway, they cut to the booth, and it's normally just the British royalty.
Receive the royal scepter.
So this time, because Carlos Alcaraz is there, the King of Spain is there. And he's dressed in a really well-tailored, pressed suit, coat and tie. And all I could think of was, why the hell do we still have royalty on this planet? It's the most absurd thing. The lineage associated with royalty, it's such an effed up thing, and we still have it in a big way. I mean, they're kings and princes and dukes all over the place, particularly in Europe. And that clearly was the way that the world was ruled many years ago. I mean, it really was about lineage. It wasn't about democracy or a representative republic. It was royalty. Anyway, the King of Spain was there at Wimbledon. It was pretty big, and that was great tennis. Excuse me. I have to say, the men's finals was so terrific from the standpoint of tennis. Went 5 sets. There were a lot of very dramatic points, and sadly, the women's side didn't have a dramatic finish, meaning the tennis was informed by unforced errors, and it left me a little disappointed. But the men's side really, paid it off big. We have a lot on the show today, and let me tell you about it quickly. It's The
Mark Thompson Show.
It's a show with news about Bay Area businesses closing, but also about heat, about another very high-profile business going away. It's breaking news. A guest in the 11 o'clock hour about travel. Yeah, she has a new show, our guest, and it looks really good. The Art of Solo Travel in Me, Myself, and the World. Pamela Holt joins us in the 11 o'clock hour. These are Pacific times, second hour for those of you who are podcasting. And Courtney will be here bottom of this hour with another story of mystery and murder. So all of that to come as well. I do have a lot in the way of politics, in the way of environment. We even have a That's Rich segment that I'd like to try to get to if we can, Albert. Will you try to make certain we do that I think we can do that at the beginning of the next hour, right?
Yep, I think we can.
All right. Let me get first to businesses that are closing. And then I want to get to the heat, which is otherworldly, and it's something that we're going to be having to get used to. No, I wanted where's the, this is it. That's it.
Mark Thompson Show.
Golden Gate Fields is set to close. Now, what they're going to do, Kim, as I understand it, essentially move their race operations to Southern California. Isn't that right?
Yeah, they're going to focus on Santa Anita Park and San Luis Ray Downs, which are two Southern California parks, but they're going to shut Golden Gate Fields down in the fall. They're already kind of streamlining what they're going to do in August. It means a lot of jobs lost for people in the Bay Area. They already took away Bay Meadows, which was on the peninsula. And so with the closure of Golden Gate Fields, it really doesn't leave any horse racing, which you may or may not like, here in the Bay Area. I think that horse racing goes on at county fairs, but not like a continuously operating horse track in the Bay Area. So that's it for horse racing here.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. I mean, they are expanding it in Southern California. There are, I don't know how many deaths of horses all the time. I mean, the horse deaths are so significant at Santa Anita. They're so significant in number that it was recommended that they close Santa Anita in Southern California. But obviously they're not going to do that because too many people's livelihoods are at stake. So I'm saddened by the fact that people are out of work. Horse racing is going away eventually. Now, we may all go away as a species before racetracks everywhere close, but it is a dying sport.
Well, one thing they haven't said is what they're going to do with that tract of land. It's right along the bay, right between Albany and Berkeley, where the 580 freeway kind of merges on to become 580, 80, and 80. So it's a prime spot of land right on the water. And I don't know if they're going to make condos there or what they're going to do, but I mean, that's a prime spot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess condos is probably a pretty good bet.
Yeah.
But it's a significant business event. I'm massively against horse racing, as you might imagine. But and this isn't a closure of horse racing. It's just a moving of horse racing operations to increase the footprint in Southern California. So,
right, because the track's owner says they're going to double down on racing at Santa Anita and San Luis Ray Downs. So,
and as I say, they've had investigation after investigation. Santa Anita, look, horse racing is not safe. You have these huge animals. They're jacked up, and they're running on these little legs and little ligaments and bones that just can't support that, especially given the fact that they're jacked the way they are. It's a sad fact. But anyway, I feel bad, as I say, for everyone who loses a livelihood in the closure of Golden Gate Park. Golden Gate Fields.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My Pillow is going away. I know. It's
Sayonara, sucker.
My Pillow. That Mike Lindell, as you know, he's auctioning off equipment. It's a massive cancellation, says CEO Mike Lindell. Lindell says My Pillow lost $100 million from, quote, attacks by box stores, the shopping networks, the shopping channels. All of them did cancel culture on us, he said. Several retailers, including Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond, and Kohl's, pulled My Pillow products from their shelves after Lindell continued to claim the 2020 presidential election was stolen. The Minnesota-based manufacturing company appears to be using the website KBid Online Auctions to sell items including forklifts, conveyor belts, printers, electronics, and commercial supplies. If you're looking to pick up any of those things, that's where you get them. He says if retailers come back, he'll be able to, ramp up operations. Now, he's facing a $1.3 billion defamation suit from Dominion. Dominion named him alongside Fox News Channel in their defamation suit because they claim that Lindell's accusations of fraud, election rigging, and conspiracy have hurt the company's brand. And you know what? They're probably right. I mean, Lindell was on every media outlet talking about that. So he was ordered to pay $5 million to a software developer. We told you the story that Lindell's data about the election being stolen was debunked. And he offered a reward to anyone who could debunk it. This guy did debunk it and then took him to court when he didn't pay the reward. And now he's paying $5 million to that guy. So life's not so great for Mike Lindell. But let's face it, he really kind of brought on himself and he kind of got drunk on the fame. I think he got drunk on the attention, But now the company's not going away, but I don't see, facing the headwinds that I just described, how they can maintain operations much longer. But that's it for Mike Lindell.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So I wanted to, can I just mention one other business that's closing? It's kind of an odd one. It's the San Jose's only Michelin-starred restaurant. Adega, is that how you say it? It will close permanently. It opened 8 years ago. It's Portuguese food. And they're going to close the restaurant permanently on their 8th anniversary and pivot, they say, to focus on their more casual concept. They opened in the Little Portugal neighborhood. They'll close December 16th. They're going to transform their flagship restaurant into, again, this sort of more casual restaurant plan. They also plan to expand the concept of Portuguese small plates. Adega, to get a Michelin star, you really got to,
I wonder why they would change it if they have a Michelin star. Like what business-wise is happening that isn't working for them?
It's probably expensive that's a good question. I don't know. I'm just guessing it's probably expensive to run the kind of operation that gets and maintains a Michelin star. And by the way, part of their story that's interesting, I think, is that their Michelin star that they received was taken away.
What?
And then they regained the star. They opened in 2016. This is San Jose. And they became the first restaurant in San Jose to get this Michelin star. Again, this restaurant's called Adega. And the only Portuguese restaurant in the Western U.S. to get that prestigious Michelin star. And now 2 years later, they lost the star. And when they lost the star, and by the way the Michelin committee works is the way the Supreme Court works. It's unreviewable, and it is without any kind of necessary explanation. They just take away your star.
That's it.
Yeah, there's no way you can appeal it.
Why are you yelling?
So then they regained the star in 2021. And they say that was even more joyful than getting the star the first time. And they focused on tasting menus. And they dropped their a la carte menu. You have a 7-course seasonal menu at a Dega in San Jose. You can still get it until their closure December 16th. And when you order from this Michelin star restaurant in San Jose, California, this 7-course seasonal menu, how much does it cost? This is not including tip, and it's not including wine. How much is the tasting menu at a Dega? A 7-course seasonal menu.
7 courses is a lot.
That is a lot. That's I'm guessing the food is on the smaller side. You know what I mean? The portions are on the smaller side.
Amuse-bouche.
Amuse-bouche. Wow, that's very, very strong. Yeah. I'm seeing guesses. 240 says Tom. I'm seeing 350 from Randy. 375 from the Surface Spins. John Watson, 250. Spencer Jaffe says 550. I will tell you, I was surprised at how, and this is going to sound weird because it's not a small number, but inexpensive it was.
Oh.
Yeah. A 7-course, wow, Susan says $750. Paul Goddard says $250. Too much, says Marjorie Hawkins. Joe Box says $11,780. I see what you did with the $11,780. All right.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
The answer and the actual retail price for 7-course seasonal menu at a Dega, the only Michelin star restaurant in San Jose, which closes December 16th, $199. Yeah. So that's not, break the bank kind of money, but if you want to run over there, they open at 5 o'clock Wednesday through Sunday for dinner in San Jose. Get them while they're still there. Well, I've ignored so far one of the most unignorable stories in the history of the planet. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
The heat is overwhelming, and the heat is a sign. Death Valley, the hottest place on Earth, hitting a near record high, blistering heat wave across the West, blistering heat waves across the globe. You're looking at temperatures that are into the 130-degree range. You cannot live in that kind of heat. Higher and more frequent temperature extremes. This weekend is a particular atmospheric configuration, right? But it's a sign of what is to come. Albert, do you have the piece that kind of just summarizes what we're looking at in the West?
Another weather story we're following up. No let up this week from those dangerously hot temperatures across the country. Tens of millions back on alert this morning following a weekend that saw records shattered from Florida to Arizona. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin is in sweltering Phoenix for us. Aaron, good morning. How widespread is it?
Aaron McLaughlin will sort it all out.
Good morning, Hoda. As the climate crisis continues, extreme heat has been scorching parts of the country for weeks. And this weekend was no different. Records were broken coast to coast in more than a dozen cities between Saturday and Sunday. Today will likely be the 18th day in a row. Temperatures here have reached 110 degrees or higher, tying
Look at this
the
map.
record for the most consecutive days.
And look at this calendar.
Saw such highs, while the high temps in Southern California created challenges for firefighters.
118 degrees in Phoenix over the weekend.
Hundreds to evacuate their homes. Firefighters are also working hard here in Phoenix, going from call to call. Some of the city's largest hospitals are reaching crisis levels from treating heat-related illnesses. The physical impact of the heat also experienced by country star Jason Aldean, who had to end his concert early in Connecticut after experiencing dehydration and heat exhaustion. The star says he's now doing fine, but it's a reminder of how serious this heat wave is. And just to put that into perspective,
that's good, Albert, because when Jason Aldean goes down, I know that's really, that is the canary in the coal mine for me. Hey, in the San Francisco Bay Area, the heat knocked out the National Weather Service radar on Mount Amanum. Temperatures hit 114 degrees Sunday, yesterday in Phoenix, as mentioned. I mean, it's not just summer. I saw that in other words, it's summer, dude. I get it. It's summer. It's a different kind of summer. And this is a sign. So we mention it not just to kind of, again, ring the bell of the climate crisis, but to also say that it's going to affect and has affected already a lot of things. There's a refugee crisis already, and it's going to be supercharged by a flight for food. I mean, agricultural belts are changing. So this is I think it's a massive story that honestly doesn't end well. I mean, Act 3 of this movie is, frankly, unless we do something, we're sowing the seeds of our own extinction, along with the extinction of many others. So Merry Christmas, everybody. There you go. Yeah, right, I like to try to give you something upbeat.
The Mark Thompson
I did
Show.
see a story about the Saudis doing something in the middle of all of this in the West and Southwest. Let me try to tell you this story quickly. It's pretty wild. So Arizona's going through a mega drought, right? So rivers, reservoirs, everything, it's just all drying up. And farm workers and farms are brutally affected by this. But there is a stretch across Arizona where there are green fields of alfalfa.
In Arizona?
Yeah. Wells are bringing water up from underground to make this otherwise parched land green, right? And here's why. The state of Arizona, for almost 10 years now, has leased this area of rural dry land, but with all this water underneath it, to a Saudi-owned company that's been allowed to pump all the water it needs to grow the alfalfa hay. And that's a crop that it exports to feed dairy cows in Saudi Arabia. So literally, the state of Arizona didn't even know how much water was being pumped out. That's how lax everything is. And they deliberately didn't want to know. They made this deal with the Saudis, and they let the Saudis essentially rape the land there. I mean, legally, because again, regulation, burdensome regulation, well, that regulation would have prevented this. But there is no regulation, essentially. There are lax regulations, if there are any. And so the Saudis went in, and it could have been anything, just the Saudis, could have been any entity, and they have been sucking the water out of Arizona. State officials gave leeway to the Saudis, leaving water unprotected amid a drought worsened by climate change. It's been a boon to Saudi Arabia, where industrial-scale farming of forage crops like alfalfa is banned in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because of the nation's limited water supply. Exactly. So public officials, ranchers in the valley, farm workers, townspeople found that the lax regulatory environment and sophisticated lobbying by the Saudi-owned company allowed a scarce American resource to flow unchecked to a foreign corporation. And they essentially buy and sell these legislators, right? To advance their interests before the state, they hired an influential Republican lawyer, a former member of Congress. They sought to win over rural neighbors. They provided a high school with donations. They sponsored sports bags and face masks emblazoned with the company logo to protect students from COVID. They took on a presence there, right? And the company says, hey, we're following the same rules that govern farming operations throughout the state of Arizona.
And so then what do they do? Do they just, I mean, are they growing the alfalfa in Arizona, or are they sucking the water away and trucking it to Saudi Arabia?
No, they're growing the alfalfa in Arizona, and they're trucking the alfalfa away to their dairy cows in Saudi. Last month, the new governor, Democrat Katie Hobbs, unveiled a long-awaited study. It shows that groundwater in parts of the Phoenix area was insufficient, we covered this story, to meet projected demand over the next century. She also sought details about water use on state-owned land. And only after the state threatened to cancel the Saudi company's leases last month did the company finally disclose how much it pumps annually into that area. Its consumption is equivalent to that of a city of more than 50,000 people. Now they're preparing plans to not renew the Saudi company's leases in that area when they expire next year. But there could be a huge confrontation and a court case over this. And the local community is split because some say, hey, foreign companies have come here to rape our land and take our water. And others are saying, I love having them here. They've helped the high school. They've helped, right? They've essentially bought the goodwill of the community. Here's a guy, look at this, cattle rancher in the area whose land goes right up against the Saudi company's farm, the alfalfa farm. He said, look, I'm usually an America First type of person, but now I'm just as concerned about the valley's water being taken by Phoenix instead of flowing to livestock and crops. He's saying, why did our government leadership allow this to happen? He's saying, either way, they're taking the water. Either the city folk are going to take it in Phoenix, or we're going to be able to let this Saudi firm grow their alfalfa here. It's a spot. It's a problem. And they have expanded. The Saudi company's expanded to California. They have 3,000 acres across the border from Arizona near the town of Blythe in California. And there, their farming operation is built on another precious water source. Anybody? The Colorado River.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
And look, I mean, a lot of several states depend on the Colorado River, which is now just a trickle. So this is a big story of something that's been happening for a long time, and that is water rights being taken, sold, and sometimes sold completely to foreign entities. And it's not always the Saudis. There are French companies that own a bunch of water rights across this country, other European countries as well. But again, Arizona groundwater is unregulated across huge areas of the state, and they need to catch up. And California water rights, as you know, are really complicated, and they're having to be reworked. So as significant shortages deepen, there's going to have to be a reckoning. And there's a lot of money on the line, and there are a lot of interests on the line. But that's what's happening in Arizona, a little bit of it anyway, when it comes to the Saudi company and the future of water in Arizona.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have a lot of stuff to do, Albert. It's not all down and dark. Can I just do the one story that reminds me of another story that we did, Albert? The parking attendant story before I throw to Kim?
Please. Yes, I think that'll be a good segue to. You said you don't want to be dark, but we do have Mark's Murder Mystery Mondays coming up. So.
Yes, that is true. There's a certain darkness built in there. Can you, by the way, get me, if you didn't put in the rundown already, the story of the woman who went missing and then all of a sudden she showed up? You know what I'm talking about? I think she's in Arkansas. Is it Arkansas, Courtney, where she was? I believe. Arkansas. Anyway, check that out, and I want to ramp into Courtney with that. But first, this.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Do you remember about 6 weeks ago, I don't know the time frame on it. Albert, you can help me, but there was a story about a guy who, for over 10 years, had been working as a parking attendant at this huge parking area alongside some sporting venue, wasn't it, Albert? And
yes, yeah.
He one day didn't show up, or it was an office building or office structure and sporting. It was quite the deal. So one day he didn't show up, and they call the city, and they say, hey, your parking attendant didn't show up today.
Albert, thank you.
And the city says, we don't have a parking attendant there. And they said, well, maybe it's a different department, but it's somebody official with the city. And they said, no, it's not a different department. There is no parking attendant there, either in the city or from any department. This guy had the greatest scam working, and he'd been working for over 10 years, and then he just picks up and takes off.
That'll be $25.99 for parking, please.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. He was just pocketing the money.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It did work. And now, an Ohio man posing as a fake parking attendant sells out an entire lot before a nearby soccer game goes underway. Makes himself $1,600. He made $2,000 in just a few hours by posing as a parking attendant, charging $40 a car to people headed to a soccer game. The man was disguised in a fluorescent green vest and had red cones to make the act look even more legit, while the real parking staff had not yet shown up.
I'm sorry, if you don't have your ticket, I can't let you pass.
Yeah, got to get there early. When the staff arrived, the 50-space lot was full. Yeah, that's it. Staff from a food and bank charity are urging the man to turn himself in. Yeah, that's going to happen. And to donate his takings to feed hungry kids. Wow. Ohio, you're on the board. Nice job. Smash the like button like a boss. Kim's News, and then Mark's Murder Mystery Monday next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let's start with a heat wave. Mark had touched on this earlier, but we've got millions of people in the United States dealing with extreme heat, smoke pollution from Canada still as well. The National Weather Service says triple-digit temperatures could last through the middle of the week from Texas to the lower Mississippi Valley as a high-pressure dome moves westward. Meanwhile, smoke from Canadian wildfires is once again hitting the United States. And there are flight delays and cancellations that continue to be a problem in parts of the U.S. According to FlightAware, more than 2,700 flights have been delayed so far across the country, and about 300 flights have already been canceled today alone.
What?
Yeah. And the heat is keeping California's fire danger high for several more days. Crews in Riverside County alone have their hands full battling 4 wildfires right now, the biggest up to 7,600 acres, only 10% contained. That triggered evacuations over the weekend in neighboring Los Angeles County. Officials are monitoring vulnerable sites. The Angeles National Forest, they say help is needed with a fire. If help is needed with a fire, they've got Utah and Colorado Colorado firefighters ready to step in and help. Meanwhile, there's a big old fire brewing in Yosemite. Here's what it looks like. Yeah, it's a wildfire in Yosemite National Park, up to 650 acres now. This one's believed to have been sparked by lightning less than 3 weeks ago, creating unhealthy air for sensitive groups. The crews say flames are moving slowly, but they've yet to reach any containment there, and they don't expect to have full control before the end of the month. Some trails are closed to the public, including sections of North Dome and Lahammet Creek trails. So, yeah, big fire brewing there.
Jeez, it's not even really fire season yet, when you get Santa Ana winds or offshore winds.
Yeah.
It's frightening. I mean, in other words, you don't have wind-driven events yet. Those are still to come. Gosh, scary.
This is a super yacht believed to belong to billionaire Walmart heiress. It's been vandalized by Spanish activists. Members of the environmental group posted a video showing themselves in front of the vessel in Ibiza, holding a banner reading, "You consume, others suffer." They spray painted the super yacht with red and black paint. So
she's the heir to the Walmart fortune, or what is it?
This super yacht is believed to be the belong to a billionaire Walmart heiress.
Well, I will say one thing about Walmart. Obviously, it's a place that all of us have found ourselves in many times. Sometimes deliberately, sometimes we end up at Walmart. But there's a great documentary, and it was released in 2005, 2006. So you may think of it as a little old, but man, it's good. It's called Walmart, The High Cost of Low Price.
My sister is in that documentary.
Is she really?
Yeah,
wow.
She was a reporter at the time for, I believe, KOVR 13 in Sacramento. And she had done this story about Walmart telling their employees to go get welfare. And it was pulled and used as part of this documentary. And so, and my family, we don't shop at Walmart anyway. We don't go, we're Target people. If you have to make a choice, Target's our choice. So at one point, we needed something. It was only offered at Target. It was a baby thing. And she was pregnant for the first time. And it was this baby backpack. And she's like, it's only at Walmart. She goes, I'm going to walk in there. They're going to notice me from the documentary and kick me straight out. So we walk into the Walmart in Roanoke Park and we have it in our hand. And we look at each other and we're like, we can't even buy anything here. And we put it back and walked away.
Wow, that's wild. That is a great story, actually. Yeah. Well, it's a good documentary. And a lot of what was in the documentary, all of it, I'd suggest, that found its way to that documentary is still relevant today. It's, again, it's called Walmart, The High Cost of Low Price. So,
and watch for Erin McAllister in that documentary.
Yeah, what's her name?
Erin McAllister.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Yeah. Watch for Erin McAllister in there.
That's right. Let's talk about Alzheimer's a bit, because seniors in the East and Southeast United States are most likely to have Alzheimer's disease. That, according to new data published in the Alzheimer's Association Journal. The report includes the first ever estimates of the prevalence of the disease in the United States from studying thousands of individuals to assess demographic risk factors. So,
prevalence is a dang word.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the first comprehensive study of its kind. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they talked to a lot of people individually, and they kind of, from that, looked at where people are that have Alzheimer's, and they can kind of tell you where most people are that have it, I guess. So you could infer from that your, chances are higher if you live in a certain region.
I'd like them to start with to take all of these studies on PFAS in the water, which they've just come out with, on what part of the country you're more likely to get Alzheimer's, on air quality. I'd like a how screwed are you index. You know what I mean? That's what we should do. A how screwed are you index. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, it evaluates all of these factors. You know how Travel Wallet does that thing? I mean, where they're always evaluating the best city, the most affordable city, the best city for recreation, the best city for dining. I want a how screwed are you index that takes into account all these things that we talk about all the time.
Forever chemicals, wildfires, Alzheimer's. Yeah,
exactly. That's it. Now we're working together.
The catastrophe index. Yeah. How screwed are you?
Yeah.
This
all right.
next story is for Courtney. These are the Menendez brothers. Remember these fellas? Well, new evidence might lead to a new trial and freedom for the Menendez brothers here in California. So it was August 20th of 1989 in the Wayback Machine. Jose and Kitty Menendez were eating ice cream and watching a movie in their Beverly Hills living room when their sons, Lyle and Eric, walked up with shotguns and killed them both. An initial trial ended in a hung jury after the defense offered evidence of sexual abuse by the boy's father. That evidence was suppressed during the second trial, leading to a guilty verdict and life sentences. Well, now new evidence from other alleged sexual abuse victims of Jose Menendez is coming to light, and prosecutors want a new trial on manslaughter charges. So if that happens, the Menendez brothers have already served enough time for the lesser charge, and they could be set free.
One of them got married in prison, as I recall.
Oh, God.
The thing with the Menendez brothers was it was suggested by prosecutors that they were being threatened. Their dad was super rich.
Yeah.
And that they were going to be cut off from this $14 million fortune that the dad had. He was an executive at Capitol Records. I remember this whole Menendez thing because it seemed pretty cut and dry. It's pretty brutal. I mean, they shot the parents with shotguns. Okay, and then the mother is crawling away, okay, and they shot her again. They're like reloading while she's crawling away. It's brutal. Now, who would think that you could take the brutality of that, somehow turn it so that you go, well, you know what, though? They might have been justified in shooting their parents with shotguns? Really? But they do allege sexual abuse, and they made it believable enough. And I've talked to journalists who cover the trial who said they believe it, that the kids were sexually abused. I don't know. But one of the things that, as I recall, led the authorities to the kids was the fact that they bought a bunch of stuff after the parents were dead. Like they bought expensive watches, and I think they bought a car, and it sort of like was not...
Here comes the inheritance.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's a wild twist in that story. We'll watch it, I guess.
And here's the last story I have for you today. This is a TikTok surgeon. Remember her? This is kind of a follow-up. This Ohio plastic surgeon's medical license is now being permanently revoked after she live-streamed surgeries on TikTok. The Ohio Medical Board voted this week to ban Dr. Catherine Graw for what it calls ignoring basic patient care. The board said Dr. Graw, formerly doctor, spoke into the camera and answered viewer questions instead of focusing on her patients. She's taking calls while she's doing the operation.
Wow.
Officials say
That's not fake. That's real.
Wow.
Yeah. Officials say that 3 patients suffered from severe complications after the former surgeon operated on them. Because maybe was she not focusing on the task at hand? I don't know. Well, her medical license is gone.
Yeah, she's out. She's out. Sayonara.
Sayonara, sucker.
All right.
Gone. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, it is.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Yeah, right on, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've made you wait long enough, Courtney. I'm very sorry for the wait.
Yeah.
In the luxurious green room here at the Mark Thompson Show. Lovely to have you here.
Down
How
the
about
hall.
it for Courtney, everyone?
Hi.
She is the
Hello.
love of my life.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, you are mine.
What can I tell you?
It's the sweetest.
I know. That's so nice.
You know, Courtney, before you start your murder, Bean, our pal Bean, contacted me over the weekend. And he said, Mark, I occasionally watch your show, really enjoy it. He's a broadcaster. He's a legendary broadcaster and a great friend for many years. We kind of started our career at the same time. He's a multiple Marconi winner, all this stuff. He said, I know the Fran Drescher was, impassioned in her remarks. And as she was speaking, all I could think about was, these are great drops for the Mark Thompson Show.
They are.
So I don't know.
I cannot believe it.
all of a sudden I feel like, yeah.
Why are you doing this?
There you go.
Really? And
what are you doing?
I'm just saying, I think they may find their way.
You people are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any more appropriate place to drop those,
yeah,
it's the Murder Mystery Monday.
Yeah, I think it may be. Anyway, all right.
I cannot believe it.
Yes, it's it. All right, so welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I will update. I've seen it in the chat, and I will update the story that is truly bizarre that broke over the weekend. That's the missing Alabama woman, Carly Russell, returned home. I will get to that in a second, but first we have the terrific production element. Albert, this is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
And for Courtney, everybody. How about
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Courtney, this woman in Alabama, her name is Carly Russell. She returned home alive and safe Saturday night. She had made a 911 call that a child was only wearing a diaper and along the side of the road. And she makes this report to cops. They show up, and there is no toddler there, and there is no Carly there. They find her car and her belongings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is all that stuff where, everybody's on the lookout for her, and they make a media appeal. And then she shows up home this weekend. And again, there's not a lot of details as to what happened. Police have not been able to locate anyone with Carly Russell from the time she left where she picked up the food, which is what she was doing, to the time she made the 911 call that I just described. They believe the child was used as bait. The Russells believe this. Her family believe this. The child was used as bait in order to lure Carly out of the car.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything more. And there is nothing more to know. It is an ongoing mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know that anybody was harmed in any way. She's not talking.
Wow.
So we'll watch that. But I wanted to, it was asked, and it does sort of, it's Courtney adjacent in terms of its interest.
Yeah. Did anyone die?
Not yet. No. So you're right. It's not technically your area.
No, but I read about it a little bit, but
until somebody dies, you're not really on it.
I mean, yeah, I might tune in a little bit.
Well, because your inbox overflows with people with the other stuff, so I get it.
Well, it was a big weekend for the story that we're going to cover.
Okay,
and
so go for it.
I'm sure that everybody knows what story this is, and that is the Long Beach serial killer. And he was arrested last week in Manhattan at his architecture firm. He's
an architect.
He is an architect.
Was, as it turns out, an architect of what?
Death.
Yes.
Actually, that does play into the murders because he was very meticulous, which is why it took so long to find him. But when I talk about the evidence against him, it is a little bit of palm to the forehead because he was doing things that really he should have been found a long time ago. So for those unfamiliar with the Long Island serial killer, these are killings that happened between roughly 1996 and 2011, and there are 18 bodies. Now, not all bodies are attributed to him. He was arrested for the murder of 3 women last week, but there have been 18 bodies found in Gilgo Beach.
And where is that? That's in New York?
Yeah.
On Long Island, New York?
Yeah, for those watching, if you go down a little bit, there's a map of where Gilgo Beach is in relationship to Long Island, in relationship to just one more. In relationship, there we go, in relationship to the suspect's house. So I'm going to talk about how this started. So on May 2nd of 2010, Shannon Gilbert makes a panicked call to 911 at 4:50 in the morning. and she is fleeing a client's home, and she says, he's trying to kill me. And she goes from door to door knocking and screaming. She is an escort working on Craigslist or Backpage, and she's been hired by a John who she calls and says is trying to kill her. She goes missing. Now, with Shannon Gilbert missing on May 2nd, 2010, the police begin to look for Shannon. And on December 11th, 2010, they find the first of 4 bodies in Gilgo Beach, and that is Melissa Barthelemy. And her remains are found on December 11th, and then Megan Waterman, Amberlynn Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes' remains are all found on December 13th.
In the same beach that we're seeing?
In the same beach that we're seeing. So if you go up, yeah, here's a map, and then here's a map as well of the Gilgo 4. Now, this case has a lot to unpack because there are so many bodies and it's over a large amount of time. So I'm going to focus on the Gilgo 4, but there are references both in the story and in the visuals to some of the other murders. So, yeah, okay. So Rex Heuermann is arrested last week, and he lives in Massapequa. I'm going to say it incorrectly.
Right.
Billy Baldwin actually tweeted that he went to high school with Rex, and Rex was sort of notoriously kind of a weird guy, as they always are, right?
Wow.
He lives in Massapequa with his wife, Asa Everup, and also a daughter and then a stepson. And he lives in the house, actually, that he was raised in, and the house is in shambles. So it's a little weird because he makes, he's an architect in Manhattan, but he goes into Manhattan every day, and he lives in this house in Massapequa. So they find him because of a pizza crust that I'll get into, and also tracking this burner phone that he has, and several different things that he was doing with the burner phone that ultimately connect him to the murders. But he's generally a family man. His wife is from Iceland, and every time a murder happened, his wife was out of town. So there's a connection back to, his wife not being there and the murders taking place. So the 4 bodies are found. The first woman is Maureen Brainerd Barnes. She's 25. She's last seen July 9th, 2007. She is an escort. She is on Craigslist. He hires her there. And all of the...
he takes her to the beach. Well, I don't know.
I don't know where he took her, but he ultimately
disposed of the body there at the beach.
On the beach. Now, the reason they found the bodies in Gilgo Beach is because, unfortunately, that tends to be where people leave bodies off of parkways. And so they took a cadaver dog, as I mentioned, on December 2010, and that's where they found those first 4 bodies. But Melissa Brainerd Barnes, she was an escort. She was 25. All of these 4 victims are under 5 feet tall. And Rex Heuermann was 6'6". He was a very large man. So
he was able to physically dominate them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And serial killers tend to have a signature, and his signature was strangulation of the victims. And then he would wrap the bodies in a burlap sack. Now, when I talked about 18 bodies being found, and he also tended to find escorts or sex workers in their 20s. Now, the 18 bodies included a male, a toddler, and other women who did not fit the profile of a 20-year-old sex worker. So they can't attribute all of the bodies to him, and not all of the bodies had the burlap sack or the strangulation.
Wow.
The next victim is Melissa Barthelemy. She was 24. She lived in New York. She was actually living in the Bronx. She goes missing, and her family starts to get calls about her death. And the man who's calling the family says, "I killed your sister. I killed your daughter. She's going to rot." And this, of course, is an alert to the family and disconcerting to the family. And so the family go to the police.
Jeez, what a twisted guy this guy is.
I know. The third victim is Megan Waterman. She's 22. She's actually from Maine. She goes and meets a client. She is never seen again. She was actually a victim of sex trafficking. She's the only victim who was over the height of 5 feet. She was 5'5". And then the last victim is Amber Lynn Costello of the Gilgo 4 murders. Amber Lynn Costello is 27. She was actually a very bright young girl and good student, but she got into drugs at a very early age. And so she's killed. She goes missing in September of 2010. And she is 4'11". So he was very much overpowering these poor women. There's a lot of evidence linking him to these crimes. If I go over a very quick timeline, I mean, the first bodies are found in 1996 and 1997. In 2000, more bodies are found. In 2003, more bodies are found. In 2007, more bodies are found. Someone's last seen, and phone calls are made to a victim's family. In 2009, a victim goes missing and calls are made to that victim's family. In 2010, the first of these Gilgo 4 murder victims are found. In 2011,
so in 2010, don't they have DNA then in 2011 or no?
Yes,
okay.
And that is partially how he is found. So 2011, 16, and 2020, and then in 2023, he's arrested. So that's the timeline that we're looking at. Now, here is some of the evidence that's connecting him to these murders. First, there was a belt, and the belt says HM or WH, depending on how you're looking at the belt. There's actually an image of the belt here in the visuals.
Albert?
And thank you. And so there's evidence from the belt that connects him to one of the victims, and that's Megan Waterman. So there's some DNA that's left there. Actually, part of the DNA that was left on the belt is one of his wife's hairs. So they actually take some of his wife's DNA and connect him to that. Yeah.
Now, how do they know it's his wife's DNA? How do they get the DNA to match it?
It was from a water bottle. So they had several. They had several warrants, so they were actually watching him for quite some time, and that's also how he was. Mm-hmm.
And he was a suspect to be watched then because of
cell phone data. So every single crime that took place happened from a burner phone.
Okay.
So he had a burner phone, and through that cell phone data, they were able to find who bought it and connect him to the murders.
So the burner phone really kicked the door open to the other things, watching his wife, watching him, and then ultimately getting this DNA. Where did they get the DNA?
So the DNA for him, if you go down, was taken from a pizza crust that he left. So they were following him. He left a pizza crust in a box. The police went and got it, and that connected him also to some DNA from one of the victims.
Say what I'll tell you, these cops are good. These detectives are committed to this.
Yes.
I mean, they really had to surveil this guy and then find this moment where they could pull his DNA off of something.
It is. And he was, I mean, I don't have a burner phone. I know you have a burner phone.
I'd like a lot of burner phones, to be honest.
But, I mean, he had his... First of all, he was making phone calls on the train into the city from Long Island, right? Maybe you don't do that, right? So they were looking for somebody that had a commute from Massapequa to Manhattan.
I see.
Because a lot of the calls were happening from Penn Station.
I see.
Okay. And that included his burner phone and the phones of the victims that he had taken that he was making calls
Sure.
from.
I mean, that's what you look at, right?
He also had a Tinder profile that was connected to... If you guessed his burner phone, you would be correct.
Wow.
Under the name Andrew Roberts. And that is where he was soliciting women for sex, also through Craigslist, also through Backpage.
Put a picture of him up again, please, Albert.
He connected his email address to the burner phone and to Tinder. He also did several searches on the internet, including the search... Why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer from the phone of the Long Island serial killer? That was his search. Yeah. That was his search. Also, why has he not been caught? So the testing of the wife's DNA came from a water bottle that they had found, as I mentioned earlier, and that connected back to Maureen Bernard Barnes.
So then they apprehend him. They move in.
Yeah. So
Albert, you have the shot of him being apprehended.
It's toward the end.
I saw it.
So plainclothes cops go to his architecture firm in Manhattan and they arrest him. You can see how tall he is.
Wow, he's a big.
The idea that he was overcoming these women who were all under 5 feet tall, who were, almost nearly 100 pounds. It's just awful. Actually, another piece of evidence was one of the women, Amberlynn Costello. She did something to one of her clients, which happened to be him. And so the client left angry, and there were eyewitnesses to this thing that she did, is basically she ripped him off. And the eyewitnesses said he was a very large man driving a Chevrolet Avalanche. And as you can see here, Rex Heuermann is a very large man, and he does have a black Chevy Avalanche.
Wow.
So the eyewitnesses connected to him as well.
Like a Law and Order episode.
Yeah.
One of those Law and Order where you go, wow, they'll never be able to find. Then bam, bam, bam. Starts with the burner phones, and then, then DNA.
It's incredible. Yeah. So now it's about... Oh, also he cried in police custody, as they all do. But he's of course saying he didn't do it, but they have enough evidence. I'm not sure why it took so long to arrest him. It seems like they've had quite a bit of evidence for some time.
Oh, really? You think?
But it might have been the DNA. I'm hearing from things that I'm reading and listening to, it sounded like it was the DNA from the pizza crust. But this all happened last week. And this is something that has been featured on many TV shows, many podcasts. It certainly has been something that people have been investigating for quite some time.
Police and investigators at his home there in that picture that Albert is on screen.
This is the home that he grew up in, that he lives in.
Yeah.
Yes. It was not well kept.
It's interesting because, as you say, an architect, you usually associate him with, or her with,
but he owed
kind of
some money. He owed quite a bit of money to the government in taxes. So he had a $450,000 tax bill that he had not paid.
But he had money for burner phones, and that's the...
he also, there were images of him going into a phone shop in Midtown Manhattan, getting more minutes for the burner phone. Just buy another burner phone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know where do you buy burner phones? At Albert, where do you buy... Albert knows. I promise you 100% he knows.
I don't know.
Albert, where do you buy burner phones?
Probably one of those smaller wireless stores, and you could literally just add minutes, like Courtney was talking about what he was doing.
Yeah.
So.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the
Not
same.
that I've done it before.
Okay. But just because you have a burner phone doesn't mean you're going to do something. Why do people get burner phones, Courtney?
I mean, because they don't want to be tracked. So don't put your email on it, and don't do searches. And
don't you? If
call
you're going
people from
overseas,
it.
don't you get a burner phone or not?
I don't think now. I think you can get
It
other
used to be.
chips
Now-
and stuff.
now, I see. Okay.
But I think that you're trying to maybe hide something or yourself if you're getting a burner phone.
Kim, do you have a burner phone? I feel like, Kim, the answer is no.
Kim does not
You
have
predict
one.
no, I
Question
predict
is,
no.
Who doesn't have a burner phone?
Oh, wow. No, but honestly,
There
do you
you
have
go.
one or not?
And
Do you-
no, I
do
don't
you-
have a burner phone.
Yeah, okay,
Why do
all
I need a
right,
burner
all right.
phone?
Yeah,
I have nothing to
exactly.
hide.
God.
It's
Yeah.
easier to hide
I'm
your tracks,
tracked.
Mark,
No.
when you have a burner phone, you know?
I mean,
No one's
It's
looking
easier
for
to
you.
cover
Yeah.
your tracks, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just, so it sounds like he did it, but it's all, I should say, alleged.
Oh,
right?
because they
he
just
was
have gotten him, and
just
it's all. But it does sound like
arrested,
they've got a lot on him.
Yeah.
So, Courtney, that was very interesting and very of the moment. I mean, that just happened this week.
Yeah, it just
So,
happened this week. So
yeah.
hopefully
And what is
this
his name again? We'll watch this story.
Rex Heuermann.
Heuermann. Yeah.
We'll be hearing a lot about him.
Yeah.
When I
Courtney,
was reporting
yeah.
this story on Friday, Courtney, I listened back to the Mark Thompson show, and it sounded like, instead of Gilgo Beach with a G, it sounded like I was saying Dildo Beach. So I have to really hit that G hard in this story coming up.
Well, I keep reading it as Gigolo Beach.
Oh.
I keep adding an I.
Yeah, well,
What's a guilty
So,
pleasure?
Yeah, there you go. By the way, I would go to both beaches.
Yeah, how about that?
They should call it Body
They
Beach. is
sound
what
fun.
They should call it.
Yeah, they should call it Dead Body Beach. Exactly.
Yeah.
Courtney, thank you.
Thank you for having
Courtney,
me.
everybody.
Thank you.
That is
Yes.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday
Yes,
for
thank
today.
you.
Thank you,
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Right. Little break, Kim's news, guest bottom of the hour. Smash the like button. Give me a thumbs up. It's free, and it helps us out. So thank you for that.
The Mark Thompson Show. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Everything is going extremely well.
What he's got going here is a situation.
You people are crazy.
You just don't get it, really. You don't.
I cannot believe it.
It's fantastic.
Thompson, party of four.
What are you doing?
You cannot say you love your country.
Sayonara, sucker. Good day, sir.
Why are you yelling? Seriously, what the
Yes. Bottom of the hour, Pamela Holt joins us. She has a series, TV series, called The Art of Solo Travel. Me, Myself, and the World is actually, I believe, the name of the series. Me, Myself, and the World. But it's The Art of Solo Travel. She travels on her own to all of these places. Some of them are not so friendly, so we'll ask her about that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime Video and Sling TV, and
I know people who have traveled the world by themselves, and I would never think to do that, not because I'm afraid of traveling by myself, but because I want to experience those things with a person.
I
don't know. Do you travel by yourself a lot?
I am with you. I think sharing is
Caring.
a way to enrich the a way to enrich the experience often. Yeah. As long as you're traveling with somebody who, has the same interest that you have, or that you can separate, they can explore their interests while and then, you meet at dinner or however it works.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at all the places that her show airs. So it airs on Amazon Prime, on Sling TV. I'm going to give you some choices. One of these choices that I give you of a streaming service where you can watch her show, Me, Myself, and the World, is a fake streaming service that I just made up. Which one is fake? Here they are. Amazon Freevee, Plex, Hoopla, Zippy, or Zumo. Which one is fake in there?
I'm trying to think about which one is real, Mark.
Is it Hoopla, Amazon Freevee, Plex, Zippy, Zumo? Which one is... People are saying Zippy. Zuma, says Julie. All of the above, says Edward.
You got a couple hooplas here. Kathleen and Dottie.
Couple of hooplas.
Yeah. Zumo from Francine.
So many new streaming services. Me, Myself, and the World. This travel show, the host of which will be along bottom of the hour. It's seen on Amazon Prime Video, Sling TV, Go Traveler, Hoopla, Amazon Freevee, Plex, Zumo, and Tubi. Indeed, Zippy was the fake streaming service. If you guess Zippy, you get points for the day. So, gosh, it's just weird. Hoopla.
That's a whole bunch of hoopla, Mark.
Hoopla, Zumo, Plex, and Tubi, all legit. Yeah. All right, Kim's News. I wanted to do a That's Rich segment. Can I do it still, you think, Albert?
Yeah, maybe we might have some time after news to
get that going.
Do, but we'll see what we could get to.
Smash the like button if you. What's that?
I'll do a quick news.
A quick news, and then we'll do a That's Rich, and then Pamela will come on and talk about this series. I think it's in its second season now.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, smash it with your iron rod. If you can give us a thumbs up, smash it like a ball.
Smash it with your iron rod.
It does help us in the algorithms of YouTube. We could use a little help, and that is the little free help that you can provide. So, Kim's News, and then, as I say, some That's Rich and a guest, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let's jump right into it, why don't we, and talk about Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She is apologizing for calling Israel a racist state. Washington Democrat making the controversial remark during a progressive conference on Saturday. As
I
she
knew
attempted...
when you showed her picture, I knew there's something racist or anti-Semitic coming here. I know
What's
that's
happening?
What this is. Yeah. All right.
She was trying to calm a group of pro-Palestine protesters. She later walked back her comment, saying she was trying to diffuse a tense situation.
I
and she
misspoke.
clarified
Right.
she doesn't believe that Israel as a nation is racist.
My words upset so many people.
Yeah. All right.
My bad. I'm sorry.
All right.
Former President Trump says there are some good people running against him for the 2024 GOP presidential nomination. Speaking on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures, the former president acknowledged some of the GOP candidates could have a role in his administration if he is elected. He also went on Maria Bartiromo and talked about how he had some bad hiring decisions in his last administration, that people were not loyal to him and that he made some mistakes in hiring. So,
yeah, well,
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah, Joe, they're loyal, but yeah, Trump really likes the loyalty.
That's his number one priority. If you're
he
not
loves
loyal,
you till he doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about this woman. We had reported that she was missing here on the Mark Thompson Show. And now she's been found. So this is a good thing. The San Mateo woman kidnapped in Mexico last year has been found and will soon be reunited with her family here in the Bay Area. Her name is Monica de Leon Barba. She is safe. She was kidnapped while she was walking her dog in November of 2022 in Mexico. Authorities are now saying that she was held in captivity until Friday when she was finally released. No arrests have been made in connection with her kidnapping, but she's now en route home to the United States. Some Bay Area patients are being warned that their personal information has been compromised. Here's another one of these stories, right? It's like, when is your information not compromised? But this information could, of course, be for sale on the internet. There was a data breach at HCA Healthcare, and it's possibly put tens of millions of people in jeopardy. Of the 5 hospitals in the state, 2 are in San Jose, Good Samaritan, and Regional Medical Center, which is the trauma center in the South Bay. Officials say hackers may have accessed up to 27 million records that include names, home city, details on last doctor visits, and more. Threads is growing. Big, big, big. Instagram Threads now 1/5 the size of Twitter. Meta's text-based social media platform topped 1.5 million downloads after hitting the 100 million user mark within 5 days of launch. Meantime, daily active user activity on Threads dropped 20% last week. So it looks like a lot of people are checking it out, not necessarily using it, right?
Which is what we said would happen.
Yep.
We said you're going to get incredible viewership and incredible sign-up numbers because of the ease of sign-up. It comes right out of Instagram, but the actual use of the platform, not so much.
And, you know, I think people are curious, like, how much like Twitter is it? And could this be something I'm interested in, right?
Sure.
Let's talk about this company out of Sunnyvale. It's called Figure AI. They are announcing that their humanoid robot has taken its first steps. The Sunnyvale-based company achieved this in less than a year since its startup. It's called Figure AI. Figure is also announcing a $9 million funding injection from Intel Capital for their humanoid robot.
Somebody recommended a movie to me. It's a Netflix movie documentary on robots. It's called I think it's called Unknown Killer Robots.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, unknown killer. It's unknown killer robots. No, it doesn't. You're right. There's nothing about that title that would suggest an uplifting. But apparently, it shows you the good of robots and what they've done, but also the danger and
the dark side.
Yeah. Anyway, I still have to see it, but I hear it's pretty good.
Well, lastly, since this is an abbreviated newscast, Ford is lowering its prices on the electric F-150 Lightning pickups. The company is citing lower costs for battery minerals and increased factory production. The basic version will now start at $50,000 and the platinum version $92,000. So
wow.
That is the F-150 Lightning pickup. There you go.
Man.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is The Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Smash the like button for Kim, for Albert. Do it for yourself. Welcome to the show. If you are just joining us, we are a radio show that has come to YouTube, so it's got a hybrid sort of feel. We're completely fan-supported or crowd-funded, however you want to think of it. We sell merch. You can see I'm surrounded by merch. It looks like a department store window where I am. And then, of course, but we really don't the merch is sort of a fun thing. But what we count on is people like you. So you can find, if you like the show and you go, I hope they stick around. I really enjoy them. You can find ways to help the show along through Patreon and PayPal. Go to themarkthompsonshow.com, and there you will find click-throughs to Patreon and PayPal, and there you can help us out. Again, themarkthompsonshow.com, click Patreon or PayPal, and the links there will take you to both those places or either place, and you can help us that way. We like to, once in a while, check up on those people in society who, let's face it, they're kind of closer to the top of the pyramid when it comes to money. We watch money in this segment. We call it That's Rich.
Who are they?
The top 1/10 of 1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
Well, one of the highest profile separations, and I guess divorces, is Kevin Costner and his wife. Yeah. Christine Baumgartner is her name. She's 49. He's 68. He wanted to pay her $52,000 a month. That seems like a lot of money to me. That was what he wanted to pay her. She requested $250,000 a month.
A month?
Yeah, kind of a pretty big gulf there. They settled on $129,000 a month. Yeah, $129,000 a month. Now,
what?
How long were they married?
They were married quite some time, actually, as I recall, because they have a couple of kids. And we did the math, and they would have had to, I believe she would have been 30, I think, when they got married. She's 49 now. But someone can you Google it, Albert? Or Kim?
Google it.
I don't know. And now I'm looking in the story, and I don't see it easily available. But they have been married for quite some time. So, I mean, again, I'm sure that matters, but
It's 2004.
Yeah, so there you go. Again.
19 years?
Yeah, and so she would have been 30 when they got married, right?
That's an awful lot of money a month.
Yeah. Well, girls got to have nice things.
I guess 50-50. And if you're looking at the money he's made since they got together, okay.
Well, there was a prenup before you say 50-50. But this is a word to all of you super wealthy people. Sometimes prenups are good to a point, but they may not get you all the way across the finish line. The prenup, you may recall, because we did report it on this show, required her to move out within 30 days of the filing for divorce. She missed that deadline, and she was the first to file for divorce, and she missed the deadline. So there was a lot of questions about leaving the estate. She said she was going to leave following the results of a court date that was originally scheduled for July 12th, and it was rescheduled. Now, the latest decision stipulates that both Costner and his ex will split the children's health care costs 50-50. The couple share 3 children, Caden, who's 16, Hayes, who's 14, and younger daughter, Grace, 13. They'll be splitting the cost down the middle, Kim. It may seem like a lot, but there's a private education for all 3. And they have sports. They all play extracurricular sports.
Yeah, that costs $139,000 a month.
The figure isn't set in stone. Both Costner and Baumgartner
doesn't deserve that much. By the way, that's child support. That's not alimony.
I see. The figure, as I say, is not unchallengeable. It will, she can go back to court and he can go back to court.
Yeah.
The judge ordered him to pay $200,000 for the wife's attorney's fees and another $100,000 for forensic costs. Where they're looking for money, the forensic accountants.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But
she must have thought he was hiding the cash.
But the forensic accountant actually found that she had spent more than $100,000 on cosmetic procedures.
Oh.
What? Yeah, a lot of stuff went down. But it's got to be galling when you're paying for your wife's attorney that's suing you for child. You know what I mean? You're paying for the whole circus.
Yeah, it got ugly because I guess Kevin Costner was saying that she bought this really expensive car, and it shows that she was planning her exit long before the divorce happened. That she was buying expensive things and spending his money on things. I'll just buy this car now because I won't be able to buy it later. Want to have him pay for it.
Wow.
Before he was checking out. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Yeah. Well, the Costners are now divorced, and they're in the process of working it all out. Meantime, on the other end of town, an affluent California city is accused of tearing down signs to public beach access. 2 public agencies in Southern California this week are arguing over beach access. The Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, it's a public agency dedicated to preserving parklands and coastal access in and around Los Angeles. They accuse the city of Malibu of tearing down signs directing visitors to, quote, hidden public beaches along the famous Malibu coastline.
Malibu doesn't want the riffraff in there.
No, they do not. The rich want their beach. It can be very difficult to find this public access down to the hidden beach. And this is why there were coastal access signs installed. The city of Malibu chose to cut these signs down and confiscate them. The city of Malibu says that the signs were put in there without the permission of Malibu to install the signs. So they removed the signs because proper permission was not granted. people of Malibu will not have to see the riffraff that finds the beach unless they can find that riffraff on their own. The famous stretch of coastline 30 miles west of Los Angeles, home to numerous celebrities, I don't need to tell you. Some of the most exclusive and desirable residents in America dot the Santa Monica Mountains, which look down over PCH. Jennifer Aniston, James Cameron, Miley Cyrus. Technically, all beaches in California are open to the public up to the high tide line, Kim. I don't need to tell you that.
Right.
But many stretches of sand impossible to reach because private properties block the way. There have been many a lawsuit about this, and yet another argument in this bougie community of Malibu. Elon Musk, if not the richest, he bounces back and forth between the richest, second richest guy in the world. Elon Musk's 75-year-old mother says that she sleeps on mattresses or blankets on the floor or in the garage when she visits Elon.
Okay, rich people are weird. Why?
What?
She recently shared insights into her sleeping arrangement when she was visiting her son. On Twitter, she shared it. I have many memories of sleeping on mattresses or blankets on the floor, on couches, or a bed in the garage.
What?
At Elon's place. Yeah, exactly.
What?
All right.
Gosh, this whole Twitter thing hasn't been really working out for Elon. Even
I
his
guess
mom's
not.
complaining about him on there.
Mom, you'll be staying in the garage today.
Yeah, Mom, I have to remove your Twitter account. It's still better than sleeping on the ground in the Kalahari Desert, she says, with lions or hyenas nearby, which I did as a child. Ugh, she had to be hell to grow up with, to listen to that all the time. You kids don't know how I had it. I grew up in the Kalahari Desert with the sound of hungry hyenas nearby. Desert lions, they could pounce on you in a second. Now she's safe on Elon's floor. And finally, Blake Martinez. Who's Blake Martinez? A linebacker in the NFL, right, Albert?
Yeah, he was. He didn't have the longest careers. Well, he's an NFL player, but he nearly made $30 million in his 7-year career.
No, so that's
Albert,
not
thank
bad.
you.
That's a pretty big number. And after retiring last season, he's making plenty of money in a different field. Martinez has started his own business in the world of
porn.
Porn, is that what you said?
Yeah.
There's never been anything like this.
Pokemon cards is actually the answer we were looking
Quite
for.
the
Yes.
opposite there, Kim. Yep, not quite.
I would have accepted any kind of trading cards, but porn, I was not going to give you points for. No, yeah, it didn't quite get it done. Well,
What are the porn stars doing?
yeah,
Mark?
all right, not trading Pokemon cards, but apparently his retirement came when he realized that he could do very well financially in the Pokemon business and do so without risk of injury, and so Martinez retired. I just asked myself, he said, do I want to keep starting over from ground zero with football and keep destroying my body? Or do I want to start over from ground zero here and do something I can actually sustain for a long time? I love football, but what I found was that I love building and running my own team even more. And his business is Blake's Breaks. It's brought in $11.5 million in revenue so far. He may end up making more from dealing in collectibles than he ever made on the playing field. Blake Martinez, now having left the NFL for a thriving multi-million-dollar Pokemon business. And with that, we close out That's Rich.
More on how the other half lives.
These people aren't just rich, they're crazy rich.
Next time on The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I ask you, Albert, how you'd like to handle this. I have our distinguished guest waiting. I have Kim waiting. We could do the guest conversation first, and she's waiting, and I'm kind of intrigued by her whole thing. Yeah. Traveling the world by herself. She does the show Me, Myself, and the World. And then we could do a little morsel of Kim after that, Albert. Does that sound acceptable to you?
Albert, thank you. I like that.
Okay.
Remember, I don't like to be married to news being at the bottom. We could just do it whenever we want here.
That's right. Albert likes, actually, that's one of the things he likes about the YouTube platform.
Freedom.
So, all right. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
yes, we are on the air. This is the platform YouTube. The way it works is you smash the like button, and somehow that helps us. I don't know how, but
Smash it with your iron rod.
hit that thumbs up. It's free, and it does help us. This lady is doing something really cool. She's hosting a show called Me, Myself, and the World. She produces, directs, and hosts it all herself. She's an adventurer, clearly, as she travels the world, and travel expert. You can find the show, Me, Myself, and the World, streaming now. I was mentioning this in the last half hour. Amazon Prime, Sling TV, Go Traveler, and Hoopla. And it's coming this August to Amazon Freevee, to Plex, to Zumo, to Tubi. How about it for Pamela Holt? Hi,
Hello,
Pamela Holt.
thank you. Hi,
Very-
Mark.
It's really cool to have you in the mix. I'm excited about this show because, Kim and I were speaking of this before, and we were talking about the fact that there's a certain courage you need almost when you travel on your own, because you're kind of used to traveling, I think, with somebody else. Sometimes there's a benefit in sharing experiences with somebody else. Give me the psychological place you have to be in to travel on your own.
Yes, it's funny you say that because I don't think I realized the psychological state that I would get myself into until I came back to the States and realized I was on high alert. I didn't need to be on high alert, walking around.
So you mean as a traveler, you're on high alert all the time because you don't want to be... Yeah, okay.
As a female solo traveler in particular, I think solo travel, the benefits far outweigh the mindset of being worried about solo traveling. I think the freedom and the independence are just tenfold over anything that people might be scared of.
So, your world of solo travel, when you decided to turn it into a TV show, what is that strategy like? In other words, where do you start? How long do you spend in a place? How do you shoot it? All that kind of thing.
Yeah, I started by going to 7 countries to sort of scout out, like, what did I want it to look like? What did I want to cover? And it was so much fun to be solo traveling on my own with the eye of looking at, okay, what would look on screen? Who would look good on screen? Who's an interesting character? And so out of those 7 countries, I ended up choosing 3 countries: Bali, Indonesia, all top to bottom Vietnam, and then a small portion of Thailand. So the actual scouting was so much fun, especially because I would meet people and they were just wonderful. They were just wonderful people, and they didn't know I was looking at them through the lens of, oh, I'm going to put them on camera.
So essentially you're auditioning everybody who you ran into.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I would say, I knew right away who would be good on camera, who was funny, who was quick, who was quick-witted. And I'd say, oh yeah, got to come back here.
I mean, you have a language barrier in those places you mentioned, so you have to find people who can speak English, right?
Yes, definitely. But there's a few times, even in the series, where I don't speak the language that they speak, and we use Google Translate, or they're teaching me words and I'm teaching them words, which is also fun because you can communicate with people so much more than just through language.
How did you, and then I will get into some of the specifics because you do have some cool ones about those places, but how do you decide what to pack? I mean, I would think if you're doing a TV show and you're leaving, you're really only leaving once. You kind of have to have everything you need for that journey. How long were your journeys, and what did you pack?
Oh my gosh. Luckily, I'm a pretty good packer. I actually have a segment in the show called Packing with Pamela.
Yeah, I
But
know you did a segment on it. Yeah.
I packed a lot, but I packed efficiently. Luckily, I was going to warm weather, so I had a lot of very thin clothes. Personally, I wore a lot of dresses and skirts because it was just an instant outfit. We had when we went back to film, so I went and scouted. I did the whole solo travel for the 7 countries. Then I went back with one cameraman, and we had just the equipment alone was a 100-pound bag, and we took turns carrying it. So I'd be carrying a 100-pound bag and then literally turn with my little small backpack of makeup, throw on a shirt that wasn't, soaking wet, and then throw on some makeup and go on camera. It was so much fun. We did 23 days of that for 2 seasons. We were definitely busting a move, and we both worked hard, but it was kind of one of those things. Every night you're laughing because you're deliriously tired, but you've had such an amazing day.
You're along the way featuring all of these colorful, exciting, dynamic experiences that you can have as a traveler. You're also looking at, I would think, ways maybe to save money or economically experience some of these things.
Yeah. I certainly, on this trip and pretty much all the trips I've gone on, definitely a budget travel. But when you go off the beaten path, when you go to, a lot of people stay at hostels. I know people think hostels are for 20-year-olds, but not so much anymore. I see people, I actually interview a gentleman who's probably in his 60s, and he stays at hostels. They're safe. They're a really, really great way to meet fellow travelers. And of course, they're super budget friendly, and they all have private rooms. And so that's a really great way to save money. Also, when you're going off the beaten path, you're not paying high prices at the restaurants and the tourist attractions, and you're really honestly getting a lot more bang for your buck. You're really coming back with an experience rather than just, oh, I saw the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I saw the Mona Lisa, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the series is Me, Myself, and the World, The Art of Solo Travel. Pamela Holt's our guest, and I want to ask you about something that happened, I guess. Not everything goes super smoothly all the time. You got detained in Cuba, apparently, and you got detained in Russia, it says.
Yeah. Yep. You would think a female solo traveler walking around looks pretty innocent, but when I
Is that what they did? They plucked you right off the street? What happened?
Oh, it was it was so scary. The Russia one, I had befriended a bunch of girls at a place that I would go for drinks, and they were really nice girls, and I was actually sneaking some things in there like pillows and toilet paper for them and their family. And one day, as a gift to me, they said, we're going to take you to some of the local spots. And so we did. We headed out, and we saw we saw a place that had French fries. And I said, oh, I just want to get some French fries. Well, they didn't eat French fries because that just wasn't a possibility for them to afford that. So I bought everybody French fries, and some of the Russian police came by and saw these girls and realized, what did they do to get the money to afford these French fries? So they're literally throwing us up against the wall, put us in their car, talking to us. And the great thing is, the girl that I was friendly with that knew English, she literally turned to me and she's like, pretend you can't talk and you can't hear. It was the only way out of it. Otherwise, they would have realized I was an American. And to get out of it, I bought them French fries.
You bought the people who busted you French fries.
Yeah, that's
how hilarious. Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's scary though, to have a cover story like essentially I'm mute and I can't. I also can't. Wow.
Luckily, she was a fast thinker, so that was great.
And the same thing happened in Cuba. What happened in Cuba where you were detained?
Well, Cuba was a little different. I had been told by several people who are actually involved in politics that had gone to Cuba or working their way in politics. And they said, oh, there's a particular orphanage that you should go, and here's a list of everything they could use. And I took that list. I got some great items from all different businesses, and in particular, eyeglasses. The eyeglasses, it's a 10-year wait for eyeglasses in Cuba. And so I brought them in, and I knew a woman that worked at a hospital, so I gave her the glasses. Well, somehow they found out that I had done that, and they were insisting that I tell them who she was and where they were dropped off. And I knew they would, quite frankly, I knew they would probably kill her. So I was like, nope, that's not going to happen. So then they tried. So
what did you say?
me.
You said, no, I won't tell you?
Yeah, I was adamant. I said, you're never going to find out.
Wow.
And I gave them a park I had been to. I told them that I met her at a park.
I see.
Hope
That's
they're
clever.
not listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will tell you, it was very, very, very scary. And even when
Cuba has a
home,
lot of police. I remember that. I've been there twice. It has a lot of cops. I was there
very,
for.
very safe for tourists, actually.
And what is the tourist situation? What is our current relationship and your ability to travel to Cuba like?
There are, I believe, between 10 and 12 reasons when I went. I went on a really special reason where it's called People to People. And I got to take dance classes. I got to help people. I got to meet people at the orphanage, all of this kind of thing. But they have since taken that away. You can definitely go on organized tours. And I think Cuba is amazing. One, it's beautiful. Two, the people are so much fun. It's a really fun country. It's just controlled by certain people.
It's sad that it's an autocracy, and then I want to get back to the other stuff, but I just think that some of these dramatic moments you had, you were kidnapped in Egypt?
It was an attempted kidnapping. I was talking to a guy. I promise you, I thought he was a security guard. He was in full security garb. People are standing in line asking him questions, and then I wait my turn on the last person. And he said, oh, okay, yes, we go this way to get there. And this is over at the pyramids in Egypt, at Giza. And it's one of those things where your life starts to slow down. And I realize he's now got me by the arms, and he's almost dragging me through the sand. And I'm starting to pull back, and I hear the sound behind me. And it's this man who was with two French women. He was obviously a security or tour guide. And he sees me, and I see him running for me, yelling for me to run. He ends up, this is the craziest story, he ends up getting into a knife fight with the guy that's got me, who's been now at this point dragging me. He frees me. I go back to the girls, and then they're like, you need to get out of here. So I get back on the camel I'd come in on.
Wow.
And as I'm leaving, this team of horses come by, and there's this kid, and he says to me something in English. He's like, what are you doing? What's wrong? And I explain the story real quick, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm Egyptian, but I go to BU, Boston University, and I run drugs, weapons, and porn during the summer to make money to pay for school. He goes, get off your camel.
It's a wild idea. It just might work.
He's like, get off your camel. Get on one of my horses if you can ride, and I will get you back to safety. And that's what I did.
That is a wild story. Wild story. Did you shoot any of that or not?
Oh my gosh, no. I was so glad to get back to.
Oh man, that's really scary. So you have this entire series. It is on Amazon, and it's across other places as well. Sling TV, Go Traveler, Hoopla.
Yeah.
Amazon Freevee, Plex, Zumo, and Tubi. It's debuting season 2. You've already got season 1 up there. You can watch it right now. Debuting in the later part of this year, apparently. Was it hard to get an Amazon series going? I give you a lot of credit, not only for, going on these adventures, figuring out a way to chronicle them, make them interesting, give us some sort of news we can use, but also these are clearly experiences that we can all have through you on some level. But I'm also just curious about, in addition to coordinating all of that, how you sell a series on Amazon and to all of these other streaming platforms.
Yeah, well, 457 calls later.
It takes a while, huh?
It does. It was a lot of cold calling, a lot of networking, and I ended up connecting with Go Traveler. They're the largest travel content supplier now for many of the different platforms and distributors or the networks. And so I ended up going through Go Traveler. These people are so great. And so they put me on Go Traveler and then ultimately made the deals with all the other platforms. So in that sense, it was a really lucky break. But for travelers, they have Rick Steves. They have
I
some
see.
really incredible series.
And so once you're with them, they do the rest of the heavy lifting for you?
They do. You have to meet a lot of requirements for each of the platforms. Each platform is different. So actually with Amazon, I had handles for each person that I interview or talk to in the series. I have handles because I wanted to promote businesses, and I had 24 hours to re-edit and remove everything. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a lot of work. I give you a lot of credit and congratulations. As we finish up, I want to ask you about travel right now. It just strikes me, I read almost every day about massive delays. Kim, I think, reported on these delays related to weather. There are all kinds of issues with weather and tourism, as you know, in Europe, as they're experiencing record heat. And so the things that were these pleasant summer European vacations are now becoming these insufferable experiences. People can't wait to get out, and they can't get out because the flights are canceled, et cetera. So with that lengthy preamble, let me ask you about the state of travel now. Where is it? How comfortable should we be? Just give me your sense of the snapshot of travel at the moment.
Well, honestly, travel is picking up after people have recovered from the pandemic. Is really the first thing they want to do. But I think the best thing to do is just stay malleable. Everyone has a lot of preconceived things about what they want from a vacation, what they want from a destination. And if you stay malleable, you're not going to be disappointed because. But
don't you have to lock in things like hotels and itineraries on some level? I mean, you can't. There's the limit to how flexible you can be, right?
Yeah, you can, but it's the moments where you're stuck in an airport or
I see.
Where you've missed a flight because they've canceled it or weather. It's those moments. And I live this, so I truly believe this. It's those moments that you really make lemonade from lemons, because you'd be surprised when one thing gets canceled, one thing doesn't work out. There's sometimes something more amazing right around the corner. And an example of that is I missed something when we were filming. And because I was sitting at a cafe, basically sulking, a guy came up to me because he saw our camera equipment and he said, "Hey, I have an American woman who came to Vietnam to sort of understand why she joined the Vietnam War. Would you like to interview her?" I'm like, what? It's one of my favorite moments of the whole series.
Wow. Pamela, I'm going to tell you a story of, and that's good advice, to be flexible and try to kind of take it in that way. I was in Vietnam, in Da Nang, okay? Da Nang is where they supposedly China Beach. You remember that show, China Beach? I'm talking to the audience. I know you know this. I think most of the audience knows it as well. But that's where China Beach supposedly was, on Da Nang. It's kind of a beach city. So we're passing through, and I'm very much informed by the Vietnam experience because I grew up with the Vietnam War sort of as the backdrop of my life, and I've read a lot about it and seen a lot of stuff on it. And so I'm in Da Nang, and I'm in this place where you buy these Buddhas, and you buy trinkets, but also big stuff. Like we got a big Buddha. That's another story about trying to get it back here to the United States. It's an insane story. I'll tell you another time. But anyway, on this, because you were talking about Vietnam vet and running into one. So this bus is there, pulls up, and it says, "Vietnam vets returning." I thought, wow, this is unreal. This like speaks to me, you know. So they are all there, and I don't go right over, but I'm trying to think, should I go over? Shouldn't I? You know, blah, blah, blah. They're all kind of meandering, and they're there by the bus. And finally, I get my courage up and I go over and I go, hey. And I'm like sort of an emotional person anyway, where it's like I'm really moved by others' experiences and by the, it's to a fault. It's a problem probably. But anyway, so I'm quite emotional as I go over there. I'm not crying or anything, but I feel that sense of, it might happen. And I said, hey, I just want to say, it's really powerful for me to meet you guys. I mean, I introduced myself, obviously. I didn't open with that, but I said, I saw the bus and I wanted to just come over and, tell you what an important part of my childhood the Vietnam War was, and the sacrifice that you made, and the troubled realities of the Vietnam War, and whatever the hell I was saying, But then I'm choking up as I'm saying it. And then the guy said to me, dude, we're kind of all over it. We don't really, it's not a big deal to us anymore.
Oh no, you like poured your heart out.
But he did say, but there are a couple of guys here who are like you. He said, who are in our group, who still are working through it. He said, so maybe you want to speak with them if you want, you know what I mean? And he wasn't dismissive, but he was just kind of bringing me back into reality. It was a great moment because I was so into it. And then it was sort of like, yeah, not everybody is still living that nightmare. Yeah. And Vietnam is perhaps one of the greatest trips I've ever taken. We've been there twice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that you're there. I love that you're all over Asia. I can't wait to get into the series. Me, Myself, and the World, the art of solo travel. She does it all herself. It's there on Amazon Prime Video, Sling TV, Go Traveler, and all those other places. You can Google it and find it coming in this year. Toward the end of the year, season 2 drops. But again, Me, Myself, and the World. Pamela, thank you so much for visiting with us. A lot of fun.
Mark, thank you for having me. I love meeting other fellow travelers.
Right on. Pamela Holt, everybody. Woohoo! I love it. Love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's a hell of a project. Can you imagine that, Kim? Albert? Really tough. I mean, you have to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
You have to make it good. You have to build a strategy for how you're going to cover it, how you're going to make it interesting, and then you have to sell it. Really difficult. So I give her a lot of credit.
Some of the places she went, like, wow. I can't even imagine after doing all the reporting on Brittany Griner and then having the police in Russia stop me, I'd be like, okay, I got to go.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, I would call it Me, Myself, and the World +1. All right. I'd always have an extra person there just in case. I mean, it really is both the virtue of traveling by yourself, you have utter freedom, and the kind of the downside, which is, you can feel more vulnerable, traveling by yourself. So, Albert, you're the big producer of this show. What do I do now?
Albert, thank you.
If we do news, I feel like we just do news to end the show. So we could just wrap up with a couple stories here, and then we could...
Should I address the controversy from last week?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
We should address it.
There's a controversy at the end of Friday's show because Michael Snyder was asked, have you seen this movie, Sound of Freedom?
Yeah.
And Michael Snyder said, well, it's a QAnon movie, and I'm not... So anyway, I get a... let me see if I can find it.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I get an email from Randy, who's a regular listener to the show and viewer of the show and supporter of the show, and he sometimes can, ask some tough questions. Let me just look at the... He sent me a long email saying, look, I'm not QAnon and nobody in my family's QAnon. I was just asking. I've heard a lot about this movie. So subsequently, his wife writes a really long and detailed review of this movie. And she says, this is my first in-theater movie in probably 4 years. I thought I would do a short review, especially because the attention this movie seems to be getting, blah, blah, blah. It's a pretty lengthy little thing. I thought it wasn't that great. It was a bit plotting in spots, but it's a powerful story about human child trafficking based on true events that more people need to be aware of. So from that standpoint, I give the movie a lot of kudos, she says. How refreshing to see something doing so well in the theaters that tackles a difficult but real subject and looks to provide more than just superhero entertainment. Okay. As far as the politics, people who say this is a recruiting tool for the right are just nuts. There are a couple of comments that could be construed as spiritual or religious, but you could count them on one hand. And given the context of the film, they are totally appropriate. For example, quote, God's children are not for sale, end quote. Whoa, how controversial. Yeah, again, so if it's all that, then it's not that bad. I've also read some articles that mention some supposed QAnon conspiracy links with the creators or cast. But these theories seem a bit far-fetched, and there's no reference to any of this in the movie itself. In general, I found it to be worthwhile, eye-opening experience on a difficult but very real subject. Randy wrote the same. I'm not a QAnon supporter. Now, I did get other emails saying, Mark, that movie is backed by the alt-right, by QAnon. These sounded like people who hadn't seen the movie. They had only seen controversies around it. I don't know. But I did want to acknowledge, I always want to acknowledge your emails, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And, our effort not to dismiss anything out of hand, Look, child trafficking is an awful thing. I mean, human trafficking is an awful thing.
But see, that's the thing, is you take the worst of the worst, right? Who can't be against that?
Right, I was just about to say.
Yeah, and then you exploit that for your own political gains.
But what is their own political gain, though? That's the only thing I don't know. I mean, I get it. You could say they're exploiting it, but I don't know if they are or not. I mean, are they just doing a movie about it, or are they really exploiting it for some political agenda?
I think they're exploiting it for their own political agenda. You see them saying, "Oh, trans people are groomers," or what have you, and so they're kind of using the fear, rightly so, of child trafficking and people grooming kids. Again, awful. Who couldn't be against that, to place fear on different groups of people. But I was reading a couple of articles, one in Rolling Stone, one in Forbes, because I got a couple of emails about this too on Friday, and that I think it's important to note, because as in news, you're always looking for sources, right? Who made this movie and why is what I'm looking for. And what I understand is, and feel free to email me if I'm wrong, but that the film stars Jim Caviezel, right? He's playing Tim Ballard, who was a former Homeland Security agent and the founder of Operation Underground Railroad. The problem is that both Ballard and Caviezel have been linked to QAnon and conspiracy theories within QAnon. So is it really based on a true story, or is the guy that it's based on QAnon crazy wacko? So can you then really bank on anything in this movie being at all true? That's my problem.
I see. Well, they say it's based on a true story. No, I think you articulated quite well. I just don't know if the threads extend back.
So this guy Ballard is his name, who the movie's based on. He previously suggested support for that theory, that wacky theory that furniture retailer Wayfair was selling children.
Oh, I see.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is the guy the movie's based on. Question mark.
Yeah, they probably dry cleaned that part of his history out, I would think. Yeah.
Caviezel's reportedly spoken at multiple QAnon events where he promoted one of the most bizarre Q conspiracies, this from Forbes, claiming child traffickers drain their victims' blood to develop adrenochrome, a chemical that theorists believe Hollywood elites inject to stay young. What?
Wow. Well,
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
So
that's really
who are
ugly.
These people making these movies,
Yeah,
are they nuts?
That's pretty
and what
crazy,
do you really
man.
want to believe? So before we start saying this movie is great and look, everyone should be against child sex trafficking, what's really true here and what really isn't?
That's very well said. That's Kim McAllister, everybody. Kim McAllister. I got one other question.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
This is from Nick. Good morning, Mark. I was watching an episode of Nip Tuck on Hulu when suddenly I heard your voice.
What?
Episode 411 has a scene of you doing a forecast on a hurricane. Two questions came to mind.
I'm kind of a big deal.
It's just part of my body of work. I don't know that that was even among my best work, but thank you, Nick, for taking a moment to recognize it. Two questions came to mind, Nick says. First, was that scene shot specifically for that episode? Or did they use archive footage from your days in meteorology? And second, is there a way for you to receive royalty payments given the footage is on a streaming service? Because of your recent discussion on the SAG-AFTRA negotiations, I felt this was pertinent and should be brought to your attention. Take care, Nick. Nick, you are right in that I was on Nip Tuck. I'd forgotten it until you mentioned it here. Of course, I've been involved in so many projects.
Do you know who I am?
Yes, I can't
I'm
quite
kind of a big deal.
keep track of all of them. But we shot it for Nip Tuck. It was shot specifically for Nip Tuck. And now to your second point. I will not get royalty payments because of the sale to Hulu. I would have gotten royalty payments and would always get royalty payments every time it runs on a network. But now that it's been sold to a streaming service, and this is tied back to SAG-AFTRA and what they want, I will not receive any royalties. And that is what performers and writers are facing as their work is sold to streaming platforms. They will receive nothing because the old structured contract depends on reruns. And there are no reruns in the streaming world. It is a problem that absolutely has to be addressed. And Fran Drescher and the SAG people who've just joined the writers, they have a plan. I know we're running late, but I'll just tell you this in 30 seconds or less. Essentially, the plan is this. Give us a percentage of the streaming of these shows. So the problem with that is that these networks, as you're aware, Netflix and Amazon, they're notoriously closed about how many people actually are watching the shows and streaming the shows. I told you this a while ago, but just to reiterate it, they're very open about how many subscribers they have, but they do not reveal how many clicks there were, how many streams there were. So somehow you're going to have to, and by the way, the actors and after SAG have suggested a third party, an objective third party that gets that information and then just cuts out a small percentage. In fact, I think the actors have asked for too little. They've asked for 2%. But they've asked for that to be shoveled their way. And again, determined by an objective third party, a data collection service. But you need Netflix, Amazon, you need them all to come to the table and be okay with parting with that information as to how many people streamed that show. That's where that sits right now. But answer, go ahead.
I'm going to give you an example. I was reading this story on CNN this morning. This is the actress. You might remember her from Orange is the New Black.
Sure.
Really funny, really strong character on the show. I mean, I would argue the show wouldn't have been what it was without her. She was saying that her residual check is $20.27. She's recognized everywhere. She achieved a level of fame on Orange is the New Black. She's recognized in her elevator of her building in New York, but she got a check for $20.
Yeah.
What?
It's
I mean, this should have set her up for life.
Sure. It's set up a lot of it's shot up a lot of executives who are associated with the show for life.
Right.
I mean, it is not fair. And I think it's okay to set up a system that's fair. What's wrong with that? So thank you for that, because it got us on this conversation, Nick. So thank you for that letter. Or that email. If you want to reach me, you can do it at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, help keep us alive, go to themarkthompsonshow.com. Click the Patreon or PayPal link, and you can contribute that way. Albert, if there's nothing else...
we didn't get to it, but Beth Farmer, Hall of Fame donor here for the Mark Thompson.
Yes!
She did put some money to our tip jar today.
Oh, hey, Beth!
Big shout out.
Shout out to Beth. Get that tip jar filled up. Come on, listeners. Beth, I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Just like those Vietnam vets that I approached.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm close.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Beth is HOF. Love my Beth. Oh, no, Albert, I can tell by that music that
It's kind of like
our
you're
time
at the end
is...
of your award show speech, Mark, and they're playing you out.
They are playing me off. You're absolutely...
Albert, thank you.
Let's get it going.
Kim, how are you?
Oh, we've had fun today. Our conversation with Pamela, our mystery with Courtney, the water heist in Arizona we covered, a little bit on the SAG after strike, the heat across the world, the closure of Golden Gate Fields. We've done a lot, and we left a lot out that we'll get to tomorrow. David K. Johnston tomorrow, and Tom Hartman joins us this week as well.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
It's going to be a big week. Thank you for being here.
Why are you yelling?
All right, until tomorrow. Bye-bye.